Okay, welcome everybody. We are moving on a little bit within our sugya. Same sugya, but a different aspect of it. Just to bring us all back in, we saw in the Mishnah machloket between the Rabbanan and Rebbi Meir regarding a bayit malei perot. The Rabbanan say that you cannot open this bayit l'chatchila on Yom Tov. But if niftach me'elav, so then you can go ahead and take from the place that it opened. Rebbi Meir says, you can go ahead and you can even take down part of this wall, a door, this closing on Yom Tov in order to take from the fruit or food product. So the Gemara questioned why is this possible? Either it's questioning the aspect of soter, or it's questioning that the fruit should be muktzah. Either or, in the end, the Gemara comes to a conclusion, and it says, it establishes that we're talking about avir delivni, we're talking about bricks that were put there without any plaster in between. So we're not talking about any doraisa of soter. Nonetheless, the Gemara questions, because we still have an issue of muktzah. Are these bricks not muktzah? They're stacked in a specific location. They're stacked up, so they're not royal for anything else. You set them aside, so are they not muktzah? And then Rav Zera comes along and he says, Amar Rav Zera, b'Yom Tov amru avalo b'Shabbat. You're right. There is a problem of muktzah here, but Rebbi Meir is going to go ahead and allow us to move the bricks. Why? Because we're dealing with Yom Tov. On Shabbat would be a problem, but on Yom Tov, Rebbi Meir has this extra leniency that you're allowed to go ahead and do it. Tananami Hach, we also have a Beitza which established Rebbi Meir in that respect. Rebbi Meir Omer, Af pochit l'chachila v'notel b'Yom Tov. Sorry, v'notel b'Yom Tov amru avalo b'Shabbat. You can go ahead and you can do this on Yom Tov, but you cannot do it on Shabbat. So we see here, Rebbi Meir has a leniency that you're allowed to go ahead and move these bricks, even though they're muktzah, on Yom Tov, leniency for Yom Tov, but not for Shabbat. Ad kan divrei haGemara. What's striking about this Gemara is, and we're going to deal with this with Tosafot, is that it seems to me that we have a leniency regarding muktzah by Yom Tov. And that should bother us. All of us who are learning, I mean, you have to go back, 9.5 years. But why should that bother us? If you go all the way back to the first daf, because usually we're machmir on Yom Tov when it comes to muktzah, no?
Yes, I thought they were machmir when it comes to Yom Tov and something.
Because the Beya?
Yeah. So if we go back, we're going out of order here. It's all good.
Isn't Beya a one of a kind?
Oh, it's right here. The very first Gemara, I'm talking about what of the Beitza Shenolda b'Yom Tov. Right, we had the Gemara there brought like 4 or 5 different explanations of why this egg is problematic on Yom Tov. And one of them, brought by Rav Nachman, was that we're talking about muktzah. We're talking about muktzah. Okay? Let's look at the Gemara there and see what the Gemara says. Amar l'cha Rav Nachman. Gabi Shabbat, stam lan tana k'Rabbi Shimon. We have a machloket Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda regarding muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda is stringent regarding all aspects of muktzah, and Rabbi Shimon regarding certain aspects of muktzah. He still holds of muktzah fundamentally, but he has a more specific type of muktzah. So Rabbi Shimon is lenient, and Rav Nachman says as such: Gabi Shabbat stam lan tana k'Rabbi Shimon. Ditznan mechadchen et hadluin lifnei habehema ve'et hanevela lifnei haklavim mokim la lebeit Hillel k'Rei Shimon. Rav Nachman explains that when Rebbe went ahead and he formulated the Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah we assume is like Beit Hillel, so he so to speak coded the Mishnah like Beit Hillel when it came to Shabbat in the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Namely, Rebbe paskined when it came to muktzah on Shabbat, we're machmer. Right. Therefore, we're mekel. When it comes to muktzah on Shabbat, we're mekel like Rabbi Shimon. And therefore, you can go ahead as it says in the Mishnah, you can go ahead, you can cut up these gourds before the animal, or nevela in front of the dogs. All of these things, even though the Rabbi Yehuda would hold that's problematic because it's muktzah, Rabbi Shimon says it's mutter, and Rebbe formulated the Mishnah that it's mutter because when it comes to Shabbat, he paskins like Rabbi Shimon. Aval gabe Yom Tov, the stam lantana Rabbi Yehuda. When Yom Tov, Rebbe formulated the Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda, that he's machmer regarding muktzah, ditnan, and this actually is from our previous daf, ein mevakin eitzem min hakorot, v'lo min hakorot shenishbar b'Yom Tov, mokim la lebeit Hillel ki Rabbi Yehuda. Right. So there, it's prohibited to go ahead and to chop this wood up on Yom Tov. Why? Because of muktzah, like Rabbi Yehuda. So when it comes to Shabbat, Rebbe made the Mishnah like Rabbi Shimon, and when it comes to Yom Tov, he made it like Rabbi Yehuda. He's machmer on Yom Tov. So michti man stam milamatniden Rebbe. Ma'ishna b'Shabbat the stam lan Rabbi Shimon, and ma'ishna b'Yom Tov the stam lan Rabbi Yehuda. Why did Rabbi Yehuda go ahead and make this distinction between Shabbat and Yehuda, between Shabbat and Yom Tov? Amrei Shabbat dechamira v'lo atil azuzei ba stam lan Rabbi Shimon the Mekel. Yom Tov the kil va'ati la'azuzei be stam lan Rabbi Yehuda the machmer. Because Shabbat is more chamor, people are going to take it more seriously. So therefore, the rabbis didn't have to come along and make extra stringencies to keep people away. But Yom Tov, which is kiltve, it's more lenient. So they had to go ahead and make extra stringencies regarding muktzah so that people don't take Yom Tov lightly. What's machmer about Shabbat? What's the chumrah about Shabbat or Yom Tov?
Sorry, what's the question?
Ocheil nefesh.
Why is he says the Shabbat the chamira? Shabbat is more machmer, so therefore Shabbat is, I don't want to say machmer is not the word. Chamira in terms of machmer. Shabbat is more chamor, not machmer. Shabbat is more chamor. And therefore, people are not going to come to take it lightly. So therefore, they can be lenient. The rabbis can be lenient regarding muktzah. But Yom Tov, which is more kal, people might take it lightly, and therefore the rabbis had to be stringent regarding muktzah.
Shabbos is skila.
Okay, number one, Shabbos is skila, and Yom Tov is just a lav. That's number one in terms of the onesh. But what else? Definitely true. What else?
Carrying, isn't it?
Carrying touches upon what we're talking about.
Ocheil nefesh and
Ocheil nefesh, exactly. Right. On Yom Tov, I have leniencies in terms of what I'm allowed to do that I don't have on Shabbat. Right? It's for food. Everything's for food. For food, it's okay. I can do everything for food on Yom Tov, right? Which is not true. But theoretically, right? People say it's all for food. I can do it for food. So then for people are going to go ahead and they're going to be mizalzel. They're going to go ahead and take things lightly, and they're going to do this, they're going to do that. So the rabbis had to be, Rebbe Yehuda Hanasi decided to be more stringent when it came to Yom Tov. And this is all talking about Muktzah. This is talking about Rebbe Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. So how could the Gemara here say that Rebbi Meir is more lenient when it comes to Yom Tov? Shouldn't we be more machmer when it comes to Yom Tov?
It's not saying he's more lenient regarding Yom Tov. It's saying in this specific case of the wall that's housing the fruit, he says it's permissible on Yom Tov because there is no muktzah. It's just like a box that's containing food.
There is no muktzah?
It's if you have a crate and it has food in it that's all prepared, you're allowed to break it on Yom Tov to get the fruit.
Okay, good. So you're right. Because there you might not be doing malacha, but here the Gemara says that these bricks are muktzah. You're not allowed to move them on Shabbat, which means we're dealing with some type of issue. And on Yom Tov, what?
They're muktzah on Shabbat.
But on Yom Tov, they're not.
On Yom Tov, where you have a concept of ocheil nefesh, and you have in mind the fruit that is in there, they're not muktzah. They're as if they're the carton holding the fruit.
But he just brought a
They're the
riot
t-
from another Gemara.
They're the
that,
toifel to
well,
the
nothing.
fruit,
Why are they not muktzah on Yom Tov?
because they're secondary to the fruit that's inside. It's the fruit you want, they're secondary.
So why in Shabbat is it muktzah?
Because on Shabbat, you don't have the concept of ocheil nefesh, that you could do this. You have the question of possible stira on Shabbat. You don't have that Easter on Yom Tov. If you hold that for ocheil nefesh, you could do various things.
So you're saying ocheil nefesh is gonna go ahead and matir muktzah.
I'm saying it's not muktzah because of the ocheil nefesh. I'm saying we're not comparing apples to apples, that on Yom Tov there is no issue of muktzah here, because the bricks on the outside are the equivalent of a case holding fruit. A carton, you're allowed to rip it on Yom Tov to get the fruit inside.
I could also
Food inside.
I can also do that. Well, I could do that on Shabbat as well.
Depends to what extent.
So let's be clear on this. Ocheil nefesh is not going to matir the malacha of soter. Meaning, you're right. To compare it to what's it called, borsiki, is that what it's called? Right, the barrel where you cut open the top. That gemara is talking about on Shabbat. And question: Is there stira of binyan mekalim or not? That aside, but it's a sugya in Shabbat, not Yom Tov. So I'm not seeing what the distinction should be, that why the bricks would be muktzah on Shabbat but not be muktzah on Yom Tov. And if they, sorry.
No, if it's stira, then I agree with you. But if it's not stira, it's muktzah. In a sense, I can light a fire on Yom Tov to cook something. I can't do that on Shabbos. So why is this pulling a brick out any different than lighting a fire?
In terms of stira, you're asking?
No, in terms of muktzah.
In terms of muktzah, so that's exactly what the Gemara on Daf Bet says. The Gemara says because we're so makel and not makel, the Torah is lenient regarding Yom Tov in other respects, in terms of the onesh, in terms of ocheil nefesh. So the rabbis need to go ahead and say, hey, let's put some security guards around this Yom Tov. Let's be more machmer with muktzah on Yom Tov than we are on Shabbat. And by the way, that's how we pass. That's how the Ramah paskins. It's a machlokes rishonim if we paskin like Rav Nachman, but the Ramah paskins that way. We are more stringent on Ashkenazim on Yom Tov regarding aspects of muktzah than we are on Shabbat.
Yeah, but that's aspects of muktzah on things that we can't otherwise do. It's muktzah because we're not supposed to touch it or move it on Shabbos because we don't use it for Shabbos. You know, if I have a hammer and I can't use it, it's muktzah unless I'm going to crush nuts with it. So here I'm going to remove the bricks to get to something that halachically I'm allowed to do on Yom Tov.
Eat fruit, I'm allowed to do that on Shabbat also.
Yeah, but here, in terms of I understand the reason for being more makel, but just in terms of, look at muktzah as you can't cook on Shabbos, you can't move things on Shabbos because of muktzah. On Yom Tov, I can cook it. If it's permissible to cook it, I should be able to move a brick to get to it. I mean, you're saying, I understand the argument. The argument is, I shouldn't be moving the brick.
I'm saying this apple I can eat on Shabbat, I can eat on Yom Tov, right? There's a brick that's bothering me. It's in my way. So the Gemara says I can move it on Yom Tov, I can't remove it on Shabbat. I'm not understanding why there should be a difference in terms of defining it as muktzah, one versus the other. And you could say, meaning if someone wants to go ahead and say, you know what, we'll be more lenient on Yom Tov when it comes to muktzah, when that muktzah has to do with food. I can hear that argument, right? Because if you're gonna tell me I'm allowed to light a fire on Yom Tov not light a fire, but extend a fire. I'm allowed to cook on Yom Tov for food. So then of course I can understand, then you can then say, I can go ahead and move muktzah for my food as well. The problem is that the Gemara on Daf Bet says the exact opposite. It says we have to be more stringent on Yom Tov. So that whole logic just falls by the wayside. To make matters worse, Tosafot says this explicitly. Tosafot says, and you can argue with Tosafot, but Tosafot says it explicitly that it's not that the brick is not Muktzah when it comes to Yom Tov. Oh, it's Muktzah. But what? Tosafot says here, I put it on the Daf Makora, but we'll look at it inside. Amar Rav Zera Yom Tov Amru, Perush, Dihitiru Muktzah, Mishum ocheil nefesh, Aval lo b'Shabbat. Mikan raya l'ritzba shapirish la'el. We'll see like Gemara la'el. The tiltul Muktzah hitiru Yom Tov mishum ocheil nefesh. There is tiltul, there is Muktzah here, but nonetheless, because of ocheil nefesh, we're going to be. It's okay. I don't get it. Did the Ritzba not see the Gemara on Daf Bet? Did he not learn Rav Nachman, where Rebbe was more machmir when it comes to Yom Tov because of ocheil nefesh? And now you're telling me ocheil nefesh is going to allow me to move the Muktzah? How is that? What? How?
Isn't Muktzah the Rabbanim?
Yes.
So you have to know what the Rabbanim had in mind, because if they
So Rebbe, who formulated the Mishnah, said, "I'm telling you what we're going to have to do." Rebbe decided, in his Beitin, decided that on Yom Tov we're going to be more machmer, and the Ritzba is coming and saying, "Now we can be more mekel on Yom Tov."
well, ocheil nefesh is not a matter of being machmir, because on Shabbos there is no ocheil nefesh.
No, we're being mekel on. We're being mekel to move the tiltul. He's saying there is tiltul Muktzah here, right? The bricks are Muktzah, and we're gonna allow you to move it because of ocheil nefesh.
But you can only move it for ocheil nefesh. You can't move it for something else.
Agreed.
And just like on Shabbos, you can't move it.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
if it's not for davar mutter, then you can't move it.
Agreed. My point. I'm just saying that Rav Nachman says the exact opposite. The Gemara says we're more machmer because of on Yom Tov with Muktzah. So how could not just Tosafot say this, but it seems what the Gemara is saying, and unless you find a way to explain, like Howard was saying, that there isn't Muktzah here. But the way that Tosafot is reading is no, there's Muktzah, and we're going to allow you to go ahead and move it.
Rashi says tiltul,
Yeah.
not Muktzah.
Well, tiltul is code word for Muktzah, I think, right?
Is it?
Yeah. Tiltul is code word for Muktzah. Okay, so what I want to deal with today is basically to understand this Ritzba is how does it work with that Gemara? That's what we have before us to do. But even before that, there's another question on this Gemara, and that is, how are you bringing a proof from Rebbi Meir? We don't paskin like Rebbi Meir. We paskin like the Rabbanan. Rebbi Meir says you can go ahead and you can move the bricks to get to the fruit. Rebbi Meir says, I'll give you, Tosafot, I'll give you it, okay? I'll tell you that, I'll agree with you that maybe Rebbi Meir says you can, tiltul Muktzah is okay, b'Yom Tov mishum ocheil nefesh, fine. But what do the Rabbanan hold? How do you know the Rabbanan would agree with that? The Rabbanan say you're not allowed to move the stones. Now, is it maybe they say that you're not allowed to move the stones because they're Muktzah, right? And then the Ritzba's whole proof is out the window. No.
The difficulty
Well,
is
maybe you can't move the bricks because of her top.
Because of a malacha, right? It could be because of soter, stira, right?
No, because you're going to take it into
Well,
reflection.
Hotzah and Yom Tov, we wouldn't have a problem with Hotzah and Yom Tov. Hotzah would be mutter.
the difficulty
You can do it on Yom Tov, but you can't do it on Shabbos.
Right, everyone agrees on Shabbat, you can't do it. The question is on Yom Tov here. Howard, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, okay. Last week and the week before, we had different reads on how to read the Gemara. What was the Amai on, and so I don't know when you look at the next set, which explanation they had on the Amai, whether it was on Rebbi Meir, whether it was on the Rabbanan. And we don't know whether the case we're dealing with is whether Rebbi Meir is talking about, in other words, we could be different Rishonim and Achronim that are explaining it, could be dealing with different cases of what the actual Gemara is, because that wasn't clear. So are we dealing with a case where Lachatchila Rebbi Meir is saying you could actually open it, or we're talking about the case where we say the wall fell down, and he's just saying that you could remove some from it. Like, what I'm asking you is, what are you asking the question? Which case? Which scenario?
Right. Okay. So fair enough. The truth is, we don't even have to get into that. I'll tell you why. Because the Shara Melech, we'll see inside, he just brings from the continuation of the Gemara, which isn't it's not so fair because we didn't yet get to that. But it's clear that the continuation of the Gemara understands that the Rabbanan argue with Rebbi Meir not because of Muktzah, but because of stira. They hold that there's soter here, and it's not going to allow it. We'll see the Shara Melech inside now. This is kind of just like I didn't want to spend so much time on it, but it was an interesting question, and he brings an interesting proof. I don't learn a lot of Shara Melech on the Rambam, but this was a very nice one. So he brings the kasha. V'derech agav re'iti la'amod al ma shekatav Tosafot v'perek hamevi divrei maskal amar Rabbi Zera v'chulei. Right, that's our Tosafot in terms of tiltul Muktzah. Now he says mikan yesh raya pireish ritzba zal shepireish the tiltul Muktzah itiru mishum ocheil nefesh. Says Shara Melech v'yesh ledaktek b'dvreihem. Dema raya. What proof is there exactly from this Gemara? Ha igala meimar da ha demashma hacha de tiltul Muktzah hitiru mishum ocheil nefesh. Hainu aliba de Rebbi Meir. Your whole proof, Tosafot, is only from the opinion of Rebbi Meir. That's what the Gemara is talking about. Rebbi Meir. Emnam rabbanan de pligi aleh va'amru dafka nifchat notel memakom hapachat aval lefotcho asar. Hainu tameu mishum Muktzah. Desavarle tiltul Muktzah asur letzorach ocheil nefesh. V'lo mishum iser stira oel k'mo shepirish Rashi. Meaning, maybe, says the Shara Melech, the Rabbanan who are arguing with Rebbi Meir, Dafka, why can't you take the bricks? Because they're Muktzah. And tiltul Muktzah for ocheil nefesh is not allowed on Yom Tov. So you can explain to me, Rebbi Meir, till you're blue in the face, but that's not going to go ahead and matter anything since we hold like the Rabbanan. Ela deinu nami savarle dein ba'avir delivni iser stira o klal k'desavarle Rebbi Meir. Rashi. Okay, so he answers like this: Emnam havadai lo kasha midi. This is not a problem. Why? Shamrina lekman. Later on, the Gemara brings this. The next sugya which we're gonna have to do is the Gemara brings the discussion whether you're allowed to have these like cellar doors that are attached to the ground, but you're allowed to, and they're attached by like a rope. Are you allowed to untie the rope, or are you allowed, or not? Are you allowed to cut the rope, or are you not? And what's the difference between whether they're attached to the ground versus they're attached to some type of barrel or something that's not attached to the ground? And so the Gemara there brings a stira, and it says, no, don't worry. That opinion is going like Rebbi Meir, and that opinion is going like the Rabbanan, right? The one who is matir to go ahead and undo the knot, that's according to Rebbi Meir. Rebbi Meir allows you to go ahead and basically it's soter on the level of the Rabbanan. He allows you to do it on Yom Tov, and the Rabbanan don't allow you to do it, right? So it's clear. So we see from later on in the Gemara, we'll read this inside in a second. It's clear from later on in the Gemara that there is a fundamental machloket between the Rabbanan and Rebbi Meir, whether soter de Rabbanan is going to be allowed for on Yom Tov. We'll just read this quickly. They hold, the Rabbanan hold that there is an Isser Stira de Rabbanan, and it's not going to be allowed. The sugya there that we're going to get to has nothing to do with Muktzah. There is no Muktzah. It's a door. Right? There's no bricks. It's just a door. There's no Isser of Muktzah. So the whole to explain the machlokah between Meir and the Rabbanan only regarding Muktzah wouldn't make any sense. Okay, we didn't get to the sugya, so I want to leave that for now. I want to go back to our main question, and our main question that we're going to deal with tonight is how to make sense of this, of Tosafot here, in the shita of the Ritzvah, that tiltul Muktzah is mutter on Yom Tov for ocheil nefesh, and the Gemara, the opinion of Nachman, that we're more machmir regarding Yom Tov when it comes to Muktzah. over Shabbat. That is our work for tonight. Let's see the Ritzvah, what he actually says. So the Ritzvah, it's Tosafot quotes it on Daf of Chavchet. So there, the Gemara says as such, source number 3. Darish Rav Chisda, v'itema Rav Yosef. Echad sakin shenifkama, ve'echad shiput shenirtzam, ve'echad grifat tanur v'kirayim b'yom tov, banam machoket Rav Yehuda v'Rabbanan. Whether somebody wants to go ahead and sharpen a knife or fix some type of spit, right, that got messed up, or to go ahead and clear out the oven from all of the ash, sticks and stones that are left, can you do that on Yom Tov? So that's the machloka between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. The Tanya, as we learned in the Beitza, ein ben Yom Tov l'Shabbat el ocheil nefesh bilvad. Rabbi Yehuda matir af machshiri ocheil nefesh. As we've mentioned earlier before, the other shiurim, Rabbanan hold that machshiri ocheil, you cannot do malacha for preparatory acts to get to ocheil nefesh, machshiri ocheil nefesh, and Rabbi Yehuda says that you're allowed to. And all of these things, to sharpen the knife and fix the spit and to clean out the oven, that's all considered machshiri ocheil nefesh. Okay, Tosafot there says as follows. In source number 4, Grifa Tanor v'Kirayim, Perush Ri, Ashvuye Gomos. So the issue of scraping out the oven is that you're going to go ahead and you're going to flatten it out. When you move the dirt, so there are going to be holes in the ground, you're going to flatten it out, and that's a malacha. That is going to be bonet, right? You're helping, you're fixing the oven by flattening out. That's bonet. V'lo nehira. Tosafot doesn't like this explanation of what the Gemara is talking about at all. Why? De'im kain lo havi dumya dahani achrini dechashi mishum dahave tikun kli. He doesn't think that you can explain that that's what Grifat Tanur is talking about, that there's a malacha involved of bonet, because the other examples of the knife and the shipud, those are talking about metakin kli. Lachein nira li demari b'tanur chadash. We're dealing with a new oven. A brand new oven, you just had the people come, they just installed it. V'adayin yesh bo avanim v'afar shelo pinu. And there's all this stuff that they left over from the installation process. They left the plastic wrap and the styrofoam and all the stuff that's in the oven. And when you're going ahead and you clear out the oven from all of the junk that they left behind, that's gemar malacha. That's finishing off the oven. The chay mishum makeh b'patesh. Makeh b'patesh are a malacha that we love to lean back on. You're finishing off the kli, the oven, makeh b'patesh. The kol gemar malacha chay mishum makeh b'patesh. Very good. Okay, so the issue here is you're moving out all this stuff. Now Tosafot asks the question. The below tama the mishum makeh b'patesh tepuk lei dahavi also mishum muktzah. 1 second. I don't even need to get to the issue of makeh b'patesh. I can't move the sticks and stones and everything else that's in these oven because it's Muktzah. The upper vavanim shebetocho Muktzah ocheil. Mikan omer ritzba dil tiltul Muktzah hitiru mishum ocheil nefesh. Mikan yavish leiraya l'madamar perkama. Ritzba says, you see from here that what? Muktzah, you can move Muktzah for ocheil nefesh. The sticks and stones are Muktzah in the oven. I want to use the oven on Yom Tov. B'seder gamor, I can go ahead and move it. That's the ritzba. This is where it comes from. And Shita, and Tosafot goes with this Shita throughout. Now, there's a stira earlier on Daf Chet between two Tosafos. The truth is, years ago, one of the first times I learned the Beitza, I came across this stira and I had an answer, which I thought was a great answer, and I recall seeing that answer somewhere. But after seeing our Gemara and the issue that came up with Rebbi Meir and tiltul Muktzah and the Ritzvah, there's a much better answer. So we'll see the steer and the Tosafot, and then we're going to start to get to try to make sense of this answer. Okay, so jumping all over Beitza. Okay, you guys are all bakim in Beitza. The Gemara we saw right, the first Mishnah Beisham and Beis Hillel in terms of whether you can do kisui adam on Yom Tov, right? So the Mishnah said, "Umodem she'im shachat shichbor bedeker v'yichase." Both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree that if you already did shchita and now you need to cover the blood with dirt to do kisei adam, that you have, if you have, you can go ahead and do it with this decker. Okay, the Gemara is now going to explain. Amar Rav Zrika, Amar Rav Yehuda, decker naot mivaod yom. It's got to be that what you had this spade. I think that's the right one. The spade, the shovel in the ground already before Yom Tov, ready to go. So you're going to go ahead and just pull it out. You don't have to stick it in on Yom Tov. It's already in the ground. Seemingly, what's the problem? Seemingly, the problem is muktzah, right? I'm going to go ahead and if once I designate this dirt, once I have the spade in the ground and it has a clump of dirt on it, so I've designated this dirt, and I don't have, now it's not a problem with muktzah because this dirt is now designated. It would have been muktzah, but now it's designated for kisei adam. So the Gemara says, well, one second, like muktzah, that's your biggest issue. But how avid katisha? You're going to go ahead and you're going to tochen. You're going to break up the dirt, the clumps of dirt into powder. There's tochen on that. That's a malacha. We're dealing with softer. We're dealing with sand. It's not clumpy. The Gemara says, well, and you're still okay. Everything's still fine. You're making a pit. That is chofer goma. That is either bona or choresh, depending on where you are. But that's a malacha. So the Gemara says, "The Rebbi Abba, the Amar Rebbi Abba, hachofer goma b'Shabbat ve'ein tzarech ala afra pater alea." Rav Abba says, if you dig a hole and you only need the dirt, you don't need the hole, so he's pater. Why you pater? If you dig a hole and you only need the dirt and you don't need the hole. Exactly. Malach Hashem tzrich legufa. In the Mishkan, they would dig holes because they wanted the holes. And therefore, if you do it for a different reason other than what was designated, what the purpose of the malacha was in the Mishkan, it's a malach shein tzrich legufa. So Tosafot asks on this. Tosafot says, right? Tosafot's here in source number 6. We'll see the end of the Gemara in a second. Ve'ein tzarech el afra pater. Mishum dahavi malach shein tzrich legufa v'pater. Pater ala. V'teima, 1 second, hold on. The imkain pater abal aser lechatchila. Just because it's pater doesn't mean you can go ahead and you can do this lechatchila. Why are we being matcha this lechatchila? Says Tosafot, Mishum Simchat Yom Tov Mutter Afilu Lechatchila. Big chiddush. We're going to go ahead and we're going to allow a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa because of Simchas Yom Tov. 1 second. It will be only derabanan, right?
Right.
Only derabanan. But then 1 second. Vim tomar imkein lama lideker naot. If I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to allow a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa, which, by the way, out of all of the malacha, out of all of the things that can make a malacha derabanan, malacha she'ein tzricha legufa is the worst. Worst meaning it's the most severe. The Rishonim talking about it's karuv l'da'oraita, because it's only missing. You're doing everything normally. Your intent is a little off, right? So therefore, we're out of all of the malacha, all of the things that are going to make a malacha derabanan, we're most stringent with malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Ubechol zot, Tosafot says, mishum simcha yom tov, we're going to allow it. However, in Cain, what about decker notes? The Gemara says I still need decker notes. I have to get rid of the muktzah issue. So he says, yesh lamor de mikom makom be'inyan she'yeh muchan me'erev yom tov. You need to have it. You can't have muktzah. That we're not going to allow. All right. So now. 1 second, what's going on? Now Tosafot is telling me that muktzah I can't move muktzah on Yom Tov? For ocheil nefesh, I'm going to allow a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. That's okay. But muktzah, that's not okay?
But why is that ocheil nefesh?
Why is it ocheil nefesh?
You're covering up the animal's already slaughtered, right? You're covering up the thing. You're not going to eat the sand, right?
You know what? It's a great kasha. It really is a good kasha because I already have the animal. Then what's the problem? But I don't have to answer the kasha. Why? Because for whatever reason, Tosafot already says that I'm going to allow the malacha she'ein tzricha legufa for Simchas Yom Tov, which I'm assuming means ocheil nefesh. So whatever simchat Yom Tov there is that I need to go ahead and do the goma to make the hole in the ground, I'm going to apply that same simchat Yom Tov to Muktzah. But Tosafot says no, he puts the brakes on it when it comes to Muktzah.
Isn't it all part of the same mitzvah though, ocheil nefesh? Because if you can't use if you can't bury the blood or cover it with sand, and which was not prepared if you are Yom Tov, you can't shech the behema.
Oh, right. So that's the machlok between Shammai and Behillel, right? And the Gemara here, the Mishnah at the end says that if you already did it, right or wrong, you shouldn't have done it. But if you already did it, then you can go ahead and use it. You can cover the dirt. You can cover the blood. Sorry, with the decker notes.
But what if you don't have dirt altogether? You can't cover the blood. You can't eat the animal, the bird?
So I don't. It doesn't affect the kashrus of the animal. I don't believe. Right. Mavatal mitzvah daseh, but the animal, the food's still going to be the food.
Right.
All right. So
You're over a lot though, at the end of the day, because you didn't cover the blood.
You're mavatal and aseh.
Is it an assay or is
it an aseh or a lav? That's a good question.
That was a love.
Is it a lav? What's the
There's
pasuk?
no mitzvah to cover the blood. I think it's a love if you don't cover it though.
Is it a lav? What's the pasuk? Howard, you already told me about Korah. Now you're
What can I say?
It's an assay or is los assay?
What's the pasuk? No, I don't know. Then
Because you're required to cover it.
I'll be honest. I don't remember what the pasuk is. I don't know if it's an asay or maybe it's an asay and a lav. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
It's kissing a dam, so it's a positive action.
Yeah. It's a pasuk in the Torah. I don't remember the pasuk.
Well, I don't think it says anything about not doing something. I mean, you're supposed to cover the blood.
No, it could be low tigala or something like that. I don't remember. It's the parent.
I don't have a chumash. I don't have it handy.
Whatever the case is, we don't have to deal with the kisui part. But the point here is that Tosafot says, I'm going to allow the malach shem tzrich legufa for simchas Yom Tov, but not the muktzah aspect. And I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, Tosafot, what's going on here? To make matters even worse, like I don't have to ask a kasha on Tosafot on daf Zion, or it's actually daf chet. This appears daf chet to lamed aleph or to chav chet. On the very same daf, 2 Tosafot later is a stira. Right, the continuation of the Gemara. And do we actually need to know the continuation of the Gemara for this Tosafot? Yeah, we do. So the continuation of the Gemara says as such: Afar kira muchanhu, afar kira man dekar shmei. The Mishnah also says that that afar kira muchanhu. And the Gemara says, what are you talking about, afar kira? Anybody who even said anything about afar kira? What are you saying? Afar kira muchanhu. So Amar Rava, hachi Amar, but the afar kira muchanhu. And I'm adding in a thing. By the way, you should know the ashes that are in my stove, that's considered muchan. That's considered prepared and ready to go. I'm going to read Amarav, Lo Shana Ela Shehusuk Me'erev Yom Tov. This is only if it was lit from before Erev Yom Tov. Aval Husuk Yom Tov also. But if these ashes came about on Yom Tov, so then we got a problem. Then we got a problem of nolad. Then royal it's lo Beitza motor. But if they're still hot, so then I can still use them. Just like I can use them to go ahead and roast an egg, I can also use them for kisui adam. Okay. Tosafot on that says, jump to the second part of Tosafot. The imtamar anu hech anu misalkin afar hakir b'yom tov lafot pashtida afagav she'ein ra'u latzlot bo beitza. Tosafot says, 1 second. You know what we do in our towns? Classic Tosafot, trying to bring halacha from what is commonly done on the streets. We take out the ash from the oven, lafot hapashtida, to go ahead and make our kugels. Afagav she'enra letzlot bo beitza. These ashes are already cooled down. There's no more. They're not hot anymore. And according to the Gemara, if you lit those the fire, well, it doesn't make a difference. If it's not royal letzlot bo beitza, so the ashes are muktzah. So how can you go ahead and move them on Yom Tov? So here on the very exact same daf, Tosafot says, "V'amar Rabbeinu Yitzchak The Muktzah eno aser l'taltel b'Yom Tov b'shvil ocheil nefesh v'simchat Yom Tov. Voila. What's going on, Tosafot? Is Muktzah allowed on Yom Tov or Muktzah is not allowed on Yom Tov? For ocheil nefesh.
Was the machmir Muktzah for Yom Tov on Daf Beit and Bey? Was that ocheil nefesh?
On Daf, which one?
Well, the one you brought us is stira, right? That we see that we're machmir by Yom Tov by Muktzah.
Yeah, that's the Gemara in Daf Bet, Rav Nachman. Yeah,
Is that ocheil nefesh?
that is ocheil nefesh. Yeah, because in both cases we're talking about.
Well, you're giving food to the animals.
Right, that's that we're using the korot to make fire, right, for food. So that would be for ocheil nefesh as well. Yeah. The animals, you can argue maybe it's not ocheil nefesh, but the Mishnah when we're machmir, which is talking about on Yom Tov, that's talking about Yom Tov. That's talking about ocheil nefesh.
But on the Tosafot, there's a difference between the two cases. The cases of the afar for the shchita is it could have been prepared the day before. I mean, we're back to that concept of what could be done and not done the day before. So the ashes, the dust or dirt for the shchita could have been prepared the day before, and they wouldn't have been muktzah, and you would have been allowed to use it. The case in that gemara is a case that you did not prepare the dirt. So it's not that the dirt itself is muktzah, it's that this dirt is muktzah because it wasn't prepared for kisui hadam. In the other case, with the taking the hot ashes out of the oven, you couldn't do this the day before. It was on Yom Tov, it was hot, and now you're taking it, so there is no muktzah. It couldn't be prepared.
Okay, good. So you're making a distinction in terms of good. You're making a distinction in terms of kind of in a sense where this muktzah is coming from, and we're gonna go somewhere along those lines. Okay, that's kind of the keyword we're gonna go with. We're gonna give a different terminology, and we're gonna explain why. So 10 minutes. Let's see what we can do. I'll say the answer years ago that I thought of, and I thought I was so clever for this answer, but now I see that it doesn't suffice. So the way that I answered it a long time ago was as such. We'll allow one derabanan, but we're not going to allow two. Meaning it's or malacha she'ein tzarich legufa or muktzah, but you can't combine them both. So since I'm already allowing you to do the malacha she'ein tzarich legufa, now you got to prepare the dirt. But if you didn't have the malacha she'ein tzarich legufa, ein achanami, I would have allowed you to go ahead and use the dirt. And I'm pretty, I don't remember who, but I did see somebody bring that down, the Ron or somebody. I have to search for it. But I think there's a much better answer, which comes to the heart of what's going on. Bishar Melech brings it as well. We're going to get caught here. All right, we'll whatever happens, happens. So the Shar Melech asks a kasha on the Beit Yosef. Where is it? Sorry, start over here. The Beit Yosef in Siman Tov Kuf Yud Chet brings the Mordechai. And Mordechai says as such, we'll read inside. Amar the Beit Yosef b'Siman Tov Kuf Yud Chet hebiya din zeh mishem ha-Mordechai v'perek b'chol ma'arvin v'katav v'zeh lo shano. Ha-Mordechai v'perek b'chol ma'arvin katav v'chulei v'omer riva de tiltul muktzah v'chulei. That you're allowed to go ahead and move muktzah, right? It means you're allowed to go ahead and move muktzah for Yom Tov, for simple Yom Tov. The raya miminahagenu she'anu masikin al gabe afar shehusak b'Yom Tov shehu muktzah umitatlen oto v'chulei l'chsot hapashida ad kan lashano. The Mordechai says that we go ahead and a raya that you're allowed to go ahead and move Muktzah for Simchas Yom Tov is what we do in our own houses. We take out the ashes and then we cover the pashtida. I guess it was covered in some type of, I don't know, tinfoil, whatever they used back in the day, coconut leaves, I don't know. And then we cover it with the ashes. Oh, so you see that matches what we do. The yesh l'tmua, the imkain says the Beit Yosef. Amay lo hitiru l'shchot l'chachila kedei l'chsot ba'afar shuvzak b'yom tov ad kan lashon. He doesn't understand why, if we're going to allow you to move muktzah for Simchas Yom Tov, so just use that afar to go ahead and do kisei adam, right? Meaning, if I'm allowed to go ahead and move the dirt in my oven for Simchas Yom Tov, so why can't I move the dirt in my oven and use it for kisei hadam? Is it not the same thing? And then I can shochet lechatchila. Why don't we say that? That's what the Beis Yosef asks on the Mordechai.
Very good question.
Yeah. And the Shar Melech says, what are you asking on the Mordechai for? V'yesh lo t'mua alav. Ma raya al kach akshot al Mordechai me'achar shedivrei Mordechai heinen divrei Tosafot Rashi shekatvu. Okay, right? Tosafot says the exact same thing. Why are you jumping to the Mordechai? Tosafot says you can do tiltul muktzah to get to for Simchas Yom Tov. Ask it on Tosafot. What's so special about what the Mordechai says? Did anybody notice the difference between what the Mordechai said and Tosafot? There was a difference. And that's going to be what his answer is based on.
He say,
Sorry, Sam?
didn't he say putting it on top?
Exactly.
Of the pashtida?
Exactly. The Mordechai says, what do? They take out the ashes and then they cover the pashtida with it. I have no idea why they're doing it, but they're covering the pashtida with the ashes. Somehow it's part of the cooking process. Tosafot said that they move the ashes because they need the space to put the pashtida. And that's fundamental. And that's what the Shar Melech answers. No, the Beit Yosef was correct to ask on the Mordechai and not on Rashi.
Is he saying it's more ocheil nefesh then? It's all part of ocheil nefesh?
Not because of ocheil nefesh, but because of the nature of the Muktzah. The nature of the Muktzah. I'll explain. He says like this: Dekuli al mashaminin tiltul Muktzah mishum ocheil nefesh. Hainu l'salek ha-Muktzah kigon grifat ha-tanor b'chitat ha-levanim. That's our sugya. Hitir mishum ocheil nefesh. To move Muktzah out of your way, ocheil nefesh. Yeah, we're going to allow it. Everyone agrees to that. Abal lishtamesh b'davar Muktzah kismichat kedera b'bak'al b'chazira v'adei also l'tatel v'tashmisho v'tiltulo zu ke'ein achilato da'asa. There's a fundamental difference between moving Muktzah and using Muktzah. Using Muktzah, whoa, 1 second. That we're not going to allow for Simchas Yom Tov. Right? Moving Muktzah, that's fine.
What's the difference? Where's the distinction?
Okay, we don't have to read the rest of the Shar Melech. What's the distinction? First, I'll explain the distinction in a second. But that explains the difference between the two Tosafot. Tosafot here is talking about Muktzah, moving the Muktzah. Why? Muktzah eno asel tatel b'yom tov b'shvil ocheil nefesh. What's the Muktzah he's talking about here? Cleaning out the oven. I'm getting the Muktzah out of the way. Decker notes. What am I doing with the Muktzah? I'm using it. To use the Muktzah, that you can't do. That's not all right. Moving the stones in our sugya, Nam and Aleph, no, right? Moving the stones, that's okay, because I'm not using the stones, I'm just getting them out of the way. Now, what's the difference? The difference is as such. Okay, I'll say it outside. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says this, but I'll say it outside. I'll send out the Makorot with the recording. Everyone can look inside. but there are different types of muktzah. Not all muktzah were created equal. Right? There's tiltul muktzah and there's shimush in muktzah. Why is tiltul muktzah aser? Right. Tiltul muktzah, at least according to Tosafot, and we see that on Shabbat Kuf Chav Dalet and Beitza Yud Aleph, right? The case of Muktzah. So Tosafot there explains, and a lot of the Rishonim hold that there's some types of muktzah. The reason the rabbis made it aser is because of Muktzah, lest you come to Muktzah, right? If you move the stones and all, you might come to carry them. Right? You might come. That's one type of muktzah. There's another type of muktzah, and that's what Howard was kind of going towards, of where I didn't prepare this for use, and that doesn't come because of Muktzah. That comes from the drasha of Rava on Daf Bet, whether you pass like Rava or not. On what meaning? Rava says, "V'achinu et asher aviu," right? B'yom hashishi. Howard, what's the pasuk? Right? V'achinu. You have to go ahead and you have to prepare it on Yom Shishi, the day before. You have to prepare it. Rava holds that type of muktzah is deoraita. Now, whether you hold like Rava is deoraita or not is irrelevant. You could still hold that as derabanan, but it's based on that pasuk that there are certain aspects of muktzah, of Yom Tov and Shabbat that need preparation. Now, when it comes to that type of the muktzah that stems v'achinu, that's not going to be doche Yom Tov. We're going to be actually more machmir for that, right? Because things need preparation. It's only the type of muktzah which is lest you come to Muktzah, and now we're going to be more mekel. Why are we going to be more mekel?
Because there's no Tzanyot.
Because there's no Muktzah Yom Tov in the first place. And we're matir malachot because of ocheil nefesh. So if it's connected to malacha, so ocheil nefesh is now going to be a matir. But if the muktzah is connected to preparation, that you have to give kavod to the chag, then we're going to be machmir. All right. Now look at the cases. Let's look back. It's beautiful because if you look back at the cases that are brought of when we paskin like when we're machmir. I go back to the very first gemara. Where the Rav Nachman says we're machmir on Yom Tov and we're mekel on Shabbat. What are the examples that he gives? Am I moving the muktzah or am I using the muktzah?
Using.
I'm using the muktzah. Mivakin etzem min hakorot. Am I moving the muktzah or using the muktzah? Using. These are all of the nature of v'hachinu. This isn't muktzah that stems from otzah. This is muktzah that stems from you got to give cover to the day, and that's the whole thing of why we're machmir on Yom Tov, because right, we don't want people to atil zuzei bay. They're going to go ahead and they're going to be too lenient on it. So when it comes to v'achinu, which is giving more kavod, we're going to be more machmir. When it comes to muktzah, which is based on malacha, so then simchas Yom Tov ocheil nefesh fundamentally plays a role. I'm going to allow that type of muktzah because if ocheil nefesh is going to push off the malacha itself, for sure it's going to push off the type of muktzah which stems from that malacha as well. And that would explain all the steers in Tosafot and the fundamental difference between different types of muktzah when we're machmir on Yom Tov and when we're in fact mekel on Yom Tov. We did it, 9 o'clock. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I still don't understand how you rationalize that based on the Mordechai.
No, it's a kasha on the Mordechai. I agree. It's not answering up the Mordechai. It's a kasha on the Mordechai, but it explains the Tosafot.
Your hakira would be a difference between taking the ashes out of the furnace, which would be the Isser Mishum Hatzah, and using the ashes to make the kugel, which would be using them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Using them is going to be a problem because then you're lacking in v'hachinu, and we have to give kavod to Yom Tov. And moving them, that's going to stem from malacha, the type of muktzah that stems from malacha, and then we're going to be mekel.
So that's why the Beis Yosef asks on.
That's exactly. That's why the Beis Yosef acts on the Mordechai, because he's talking about using, and the Tosafot is only talking about moving, and everyone agrees you can move it.
It's a difficult example though, because it's easy to misunderstand the Mordechai, to basically believe that this ash that you're covering pastita with is basically all part of a ocheil nefesh process.
You're right. It is part of the process, but it's still lacking in the hachinu. You want to use muktzah. You did not set aside this muktzah to be used on Yom Tov, so now you have a problem. And because we have leniencies of ocheil nefesh on Yom Tov, we have to safeguard them more, and you have to give more kavod and prepare whatever you want to do on Yom Tov with food. You better make sure everything you need for that food is prepared beforehand.
What if you want to take the ash out of the oven to cook something else on Yom Tov? That's also too.
That would be mutter. That would be mutter because you're just removing it. You're not using it.
How's that different than the pastita?
Well, there are two cases of the pastida. It's moving it. It's moving the dirt, the ashes out in order to make room for the pastida. That was Tosafot's version, and the Mordechai's version is moving the ashes out moving the ashes in order to cover and insulate the pastida. Again, I don't know how they cooked in
but isn't that
1100s.
Isn't that similar to moving the ashes out to put something else in to cook?
No, because one is just moving it, and one is using it. Using it is going to be more severe on Yom Tov.
Using it as a preservative, cover a pastita or whatever you're using it for, is more severe than basically just taking it out for the purposes of putting something else in the oven.
Right, because it's a different type of muktzah. Inherently, it's a different type of muktzah, and this is basically what Howard said this in the middle, and just not in the same language. That when you need to prepare something, that stems from the hachinu. I need to give kavod to the day. I need to do everything that needs to be done in order to prepare for it, as opposed to just tiltul, which is lest you come to carry, which is not a problem at all in Yom Tov.
But the Mordechai may be able to be explained because the ashes from the oven could not be prepared to be bod yom. In other words, those ashes, in order to be warm to serve their purpose, had to be the ashes from the oven that you just cooked in on Yom Tov. So that may be how he explains using them, because it's not the exact same. It could not be prepared to be bod yom.
Yeah, but he must be implying that you somehow could prepare separate ashes before Yom Tov to cover the pastita with, or something like that. Because otherwise, I just don't see the distinction as to why that would be on the level of tiltul.
Right, Howard, you're asking. I hear what you're asking. You're saying, what about a situation in which I couldn't? There is no hachinu. What do we want me to do? Right, like to compare it to what we were talking about. Shaving on Erev Chag, right? Now it's 4 days later and you got stubble and you know, what did you want me to do? I already shaved. I shaved 5 minutes before Yom Tov and now it's the same thing. I don't know, we keep coming back to shaving. I guess it's because of Sphira. Okay, I don't know. We have to think about how to answer for the Mordechai, maybe something along the lines. I'll send out the source sheet. It's worthwhile to look at the Shulchan Aruch Rav inside. It's a nice read. Okay.
Sure.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbos.